Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm privileged to welcome a very accomplished organizational development consultant, a very dear friend from Israel, Dr. Amir Kfir. Amir, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashna, for having me here.
Thank you.
Very happy to be with you.
Thank you. Amir is the owner and CEO of Amirror Group Organizational Development. He's an organizational consultant and management change leader, and he does extensive work with YPO and YPO members, and I have learned a lot from him. So, Amir, let's start with asking you, what are some of the milestones or three key milestones in your career or your life?
One thing definitely that was very big in my life is my military service.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of, I think, of my heritage, because my father fought in Israel's independence war and my brother fought in another one.
Mm-hmm.
So fighting for our country has been a big part of who we are and our identity of growing here and being a ninth generation born in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And the second big milestone, I think, was my determination to go and do my PhD in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, to end up working for a consulting company called Adizes. And Dr. Ichak Adizes, who is a big guru of management,
Mm-hmm.
was a huge influence on my life. And the third milestone is that after being a resource for YPO on Forum, I was invited to become the moderator of a peace action network movement that started with first a forum between Israelis and Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
And in that event, being a moderator, which was initially questioned about my ability to be objective, but really was supported with a lot of great people,
Mm-hmm.
we were able to make huge breakthrough by learning what does it really mean to be in another person's shoes and to develop empathy.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of a big movement, first with other peace forums between Greeks and Turks and Armenians and Hindu and Pakistan and Jews and Muslim, but also then mushroomed to say that the process of Forum, that group of people that can have this amazing conversation under confidentiality, could be also a tool for social change.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the work around Tanishka in India and the Young Inspirational Networks. And then from there to bringing Forum into companies and bringing it into families.
So let me pause you for a second and let's talk forum first. What is a forum?
So Forum is an amazing construct of a group of probably 8 to 10 people that come together on a regular basis to have a very important conversation about what's happening in their life.
Okay.
Because it happens under a shield
Mm-hmm.
of confidentiality, the conversation goes very deep, and soon enough people open up, become vulnerable and very authentic, and talk about both their success but put on the table their challenges, and they find that with an attitude of deep care and love, tough love can take place, and people take care of each other, and they watch each other's back. And we learn from each other, but we also develop mutual accountability with each other for our growth. So every meeting, we would look at each other and we will ask, are you healthy? Are you happy? Are you successful? And when you're not in any one of those things, we will engage and we will work to take care of each other, so that the people would swear that probably this construct is the most valuable thing in their life.
Very interesting.
And that is very powerful.
And, within a YPO setting, I understand you said it's a very secure environment. But how does a forum benefit individuals?
Yeah. Each person at any point in life has challenges, right? Sometimes we have huge challenges where the floor is dropping under our feet, and all of a sudden we'd say, I'm going to lose my marriage, I'm going to lose my relationship with my kids, I'm going to lose my business. And when emotions and rationale get clouded together, we don't really see things clearly, because it takes two to know one. When we open up in a place where we feel that we can truly be ourselves in a very authentic way, we can get some input from people around us that will show us a kaleidoscope of options of way that we could choose to respond to the situation.
Okay.
And ask us really challenges questions that will allow us to relook at our thing that we're facing from completely different angles. And through the stories and the sharing and the experience and the emotional connect that gives people a sense of empathy, that you understand how it is to be in a moment where I'm feeling shameful or I'm feeling terrified, and you tell me, hey, brother, you're not alone. Let me tell you, I've been there. People find deep comfort, and really what they gain is a sense of self respect, self
Wow.
trust. And they emerge out of it saying, I don't know exactly what I will do, but I'll take care of this thing.
Fantastic. And is it the trust which helps to resolve conflicts?
Yes, because, and this is very important,
Mm.
in order to be able to be in conflict, I need to know that I can take that risk with you, which means I can challenge your point of view.
Correct.
I can tell you that I see things in a different way. And I also know that your motivation is aligned with mine and that your interest is aligned with mine. When all those things happen, there's a sense of safety and trust. And if I trust you, I can challenge you, brother.
Well
And I
said.
could say, with all due respect, and I come from a place of love. It's called tough love, which means how to say tough things from a place of love, like raising kids. I can give you tremendous value that you might not see yourself.
Very interesting.
And that is very powerful.
Very interesting. So, Amir, just before we started recording, you said that you want to start a revolution of ideas by encouraging use of forum at home and the workplace. Tell me, how will it work at home and how will it work at my office?
Look, a family is really a forum. What does it mean? The nature of the relationship as a family is a group of people that take care of each other. I mean, who will come to visit you in prison? Who will bail you out in the middle of the night? Who will come with a spare tire at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're on a trip in the desert, if not someone that you can count out always to be there for you, which are your family members? But the challenge is, how do we institutionalize in the family this relationship and the ability to deal with conflicts before they become explosive? Because families are very loaded. Take India, family business, multi-generation, living together with each other. Very difficult to be able to deal with some of the most complex questions of life.
Yeah.
And yet it is the sibling relationship that is the longest relationship in our life. So if we learn to honor the notion of equality, if we learn to honor the notion of confidentiality, if we step in when someone has a challenge in the family and we do what it takes to save them in the situation or to be there for them, to comfort them and to be part of that circle of inner trust.
Correct.
And we institutionalize the teaching already when the children are young, how to speak to each other in this way, and how to be mindful of each other. We create families that shift from this. You see, the hand is united differences together. But what makes the hand powerful is that when it shifts from this to this.
Well said.
And forum gets us to understand how we become this. How do we become a fist? If I will hit the window in front of me with my fingers like this, they will break. If I hit it like this, I will break the window.
Well said.
The same thing is true for a business. Why? Because in business, often we think that we are actually competing with the people around us. We say that the competition is outside, but if you're sitting in an executive committee and one of the persons looks much better than you, you're concerned that they are the ones who's going to get the promotion. And so for you, it becomes more important to overcow the other people in the group.
Correct.
If we are able to create an environment where we understand that we either hang together or we hang next to each other, and that the success of us is a total success because what the client wants has nothing to do with different silo functions do, we understand that we need to increase our level of integration. Forum is the ultimate integration.
Well said.
Forum will create a powerful, agile organization that is able to do more with less.
Okay. And, again, when I was reading about you, you have drawn a parallel between corporate life cycle and marriage life cycle. Help me understand this.
Well, everything in life has a life cycle.
Correct.
Rocks have a life cycle. My hair on my head had a life cycle. I had hair down to my shoulders.
Yeah.
Right? Everything goes and grows and moves and so on and so forth. A company has a life cycle.
Correct.
It starts, there's a startup, there's a courtship phase, and then it starts, and then it's a startup phase, and it's hardworking and sleepless night, and then all of a sudden you make it and you grow like crazy, and then you realize that you grew too much and that you need to bring some more system and order, and you bring a stage of bringing professional management, and only if you're able to balance between the entrepreneurial spirit and the professionalism, the company can truly be a prime company, and if you become too complacent, you start to age, and so on and so forth. Well, a marriage is the same. A marriage starts with a courtship and with a question, is this the right person? Is this the one person I want to spend the rest of my life with? And it has typical problems of that phase, doubt and so on and so forth. And once you get married, there are other new typical problems that you have in a marriage, like in a company, like not sleeping at night because you have to care for the business, which sounds like a baby.
Correct.
There's a lot of parallelism, and most companies are built out of a partnership, maybe two, maybe more, and it's a mama papa store, right?
Correct.
Some person is focused more on the outside, the product, the pushing. The other person takes care of the books
Correct.
and tells the client, come back tomorrow. So a business and a family is an alignment of forces that are diagonal, different, complementary to each other, and need to build a whole system over time with all the conflicts within the system, which are inherent. And so the knowledge how to manage conflicts in a constructive way from a place of mutual trust and respect in a family is the same thing as a marriage.
Very interesting.
And if you learn to understand that you are now going through a certain phase, you develop an attitude of relaxation about it. You breathe into it. And you realize, okay, we're now going through a family trap, which means that all the business is wrapped around the finger of grandfather, and he makes all the decisions. That's normal. Now we need to transition and bring more professional management, decision making, board of directors. That would be the evolution of the business. Same thing in a family. We now raised our kids, but now they're becoming adolescents. They're rebellious. They have a need for independence. They have a need for self-expression. Are we going to suppress it, or are we going to find ways to allow it to express itself so that the kids at the age of 18 don't leave and don't have any more connection with us?
Well said.
And the same thing for the marriage. What do we do when we become empty nest? What happens when the whole system changes in its life cycle, because marriage is and family is a life cycle? How do we still keep it together? That's the challenge.
Very interesting. So, I mean, let's move to the other part of our conversation, which is you as an organizational consultant and a management change leader. Your style of teaching is experiential learning, and you have already shared some of the things that you are doing in forum. But tell me, what is the meaning of experiential learning?
So the best way to learn something is hands-on.
Correct.
Why? Because if you talk to me about a concept, I look at the concept in my head and I try to put it somewhere. So I look at how is it different or similar than other experience that I have. If it's similar, there's nothing new. If it's different, I have a hard time adopting to it.
Okay.
So there is intellectually a difficulty in truly learning something because we're looking at it from a conceptual point of view. But if you want to teach somebody how to do something, there's got to be an opportunity for them to actually do it in order to truly assimilate the knowledge into them. When you sit in the hot seat, right? If you're learning to be a moderator of a forum, for instance, it's only in the training when I get people to sit in the hot seat and say, okay, the ball is yours, you got it. People freeze for a moment, they panic for a little bit. Then they have an appreciation for the learning. Now that I talk to them about theory, they listen carefully because they just saw how just trying to wing it doesn't work.
Correct.
That you need to actually understand some of the underpinning philosophical, practical things in order to be able to do it.
Yeah, well, I know I've been in your sessions, and I know that learning is absolutely incredible. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean, you've been there. I think we all know from the time that we're kids. You know, I used to play chess with my dad. Every time I made a move, he says, you need to think about that one again. You know, after a while, I said, you know, I don't really want to play because you keep correcting me all the time. Let me have my failure. Let me have my failure.
Well
you know,
said.
he was trying to save me. And in trying to save me, I started not enjoying the game anymore. So experiential is let people do their mistake. Let people have their experience and learn, because mistakes are actually an amazing opportunity to build resilience, to learn more.
Very interesting.
And to experiment.
So, you know, let's now move to your Art of Peace program. You know, tell me, what causes conflict?
Conflict is something very simple. It's just two opposing opinions. It's two ways of looking at reality. And, you know,
And both
my
could
way
be
of
right.
seeing it.
Both could be right.
And?
Both could be right.
Both could be right, though they're just both perspectives. You know, if you look at a glass from two different angles, two people might see half full or half empty, or you look at a picture and one person sees an old lady and the other one sees a young girl. It's a perspective. The physical reality is similar. The way that one looks at it is a derivative of our own bias, our home where we grew up, where things have been falling in our life until now, our cultural bias in one way or another. And then we clash. We clash because we have different interests. What's good for you isn't necessarily good for me, right? And so we get into really big conflicts between each other. Small ones in a family, for instance, or small one even between my 2 ears. I know that I need to eat in a certain way to be healthy, but when the sandwiches arrive with the cream cheese and the lax in them, then I eat them, and I'm not really obeying my intellectual understanding. So I myself in conflict get the two people together now, living together for the rest of their life after falling in love at a young age, but after meeting each other very shortly, like it would happen in your culture. There's going to be a lot of conflict. So the question is not whether you have conflicts or not. The question is how you deal with them. And in order to deal with conflicts, often people go into a way that is embedded in the way that they've done it, what they've seen in the home in which they grew up, or the opposite of such. Some people stay away from it. You know, I just feel on my skin, this is going to end up being a fight. I pull out. I don't want fights. I grew up in a place where there are a lot of fights. It was always intimidating for me. I know emotionally I was overwhelmed. I'm not that child anymore, but still I tend to get overwhelmed when conflict emerges.
Right.
The other one is my way or the highway, and I'm going to force it, and that's what you're going to do. And some people grew up with that and seem to be repeating it or counterbalancing that, to which many people fold and say, okay, have it your way. But what they mean to say is, until I get stronger, have it your way. With kids, they might leave home and they'll just take out. You can't control me. I'm an independent persona, right? In a business, you can have it your way, but I will find a way to sabotage what you're trying to achieve. I will not be really the player you're looking on the field.
Very interesting.
Then people say, okay, let's compromise, do 50-50. 50-50 is being evaluated by the question of whether both parties are unhappy in a similar way. That's not going to work well. So what's the alternative to that? Co-creation. What does that mean? The ability to truly understand the unique underlying needs of each side. When you go deep into a conflict between nations, which I've done quite a few times, what I found out is that everybody wants to raise kids that will have a future. Everybody wants to make sure they'll say their grandchildren. Everybody wants to make sure they'll have a roof around their head and a meal on the table, and will have education and a standard of living. Everybody wants to have hope for the future, right? If you identify that need and you're able to sow a solution that serves the real underlying needs and is able to do that, then you give people what they really need. Sometimes people need a sense of identity. They need to know that they are a separate identity from the other. If you're able to give them that at the price where you can live with that, so that it means that serving your need is not going to be the diminishing of my existence or needs, we can create some really good solution.
Amazing, amazing. So one more question before I move to some questions for you personally. You know, you have worked with so many different people, so many YPOers. What are some of the important qualities a CEO should have?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I'm now remembering Henry McGovern, if I mention his name. Right, he's a YPO member who owned large restaurants business in Eastern Europe. Went there as a young man and started when Europe at that place and was really laid back in many ways. What I saw about this guy is humbleness. He was hungry and eager and passionate, but he was always humble, and he was always at eye level with people. People liked him.
Yeah.
People trusted him. People wanted to do business with him because they knew that what he says is what's going to happen. And he was very straightforward about that. So, you know, I've seen in him many characteristics of that nature. I've seen leaders like Odysseus Kyriakopoulos from Greece, who had vision, who was able to look 15 years ahead. I said to him, how come you're looking 50 years ahead? He says, I'm in minerals. When I close a deal, I need to buy reserves for the next 15 years. So I must think 15 years ahead. So I've seen the real practical meaning of being able to look far into the future and then to understand how taking care of people becomes essential to be able to win in the long run, because you understand that you want them aligned with what you're trying to do for the very long run. And so their families is part of the business as well.
Very interesting.
Right? I've seen a guy called Takis Gerolimatos that unfortunately passed away in Greece, a brilliant man that started a business in pharmaceutical from scratch. His dad had a pharmacy in Syntagma Square, and he used to go in to convince people to buy. And when I asked him, Takis, what are your values? He says, Amir, please don't tell me all these big university words. You know, he says, remember, I did not finish, I don't know what degree, and I have 6 PhDs. I said, how? He says, I hired them. So I said, so what made you so successful? He says, that's what you mean. We keep our promise.
Very well.
That's it.
Very well. Sir.
Right? So I've really had the privilege in my career to meet phenomenal people around the world. Do great things. And I think they have been there for each other.
I agree. Well said. So now I'm going to move to the last part of our conversation. I have time for 3, maybe 4 questions. Amir, as you look back at an amazing life and as you look ahead at all the amazing things you will do, what does success mean to Amir?
That's a good question. I think I need to be, first of all, happy and content with what I have. I need to be in a sense of appreciation for the good things that I have.
Correct.
And to stay positive in this respect. And I think it means that I'm able to keep my family together and to play the role that I have to play as a father for the family. Even though I spent for the last 30 years probably 150 days a year traveling.
Correct.
And this has been a good year for me to understand the importance of that.
Yeah.
But I think that I've also been very, very privileged to work with incredible people around the world and to see how to build businesses in a successful way. And I've had great teachers on my journey.
Wonderful.
That is now time to think how to take all that knowledge and to put it together into a way of disseminating this knowledge to large audiences around the world, similar to what you're doing. You have found a great way to make an impact in this world. And the purpose of making an impact is not to serve our ego so that our tombstone will say that we've made an impact. I think it's actually to feel that we've lived a life worth living and that we have given what we had to give, that we did not hold back onto it.
Correct.
And for me right now is the challenge of bringing this process that you and I talked about called Forum, that we love and cherish, to the many millions around the world.
I agree.
To simply teach families how to converse in a way that will create a long-lasting relationship of love and caretaking, and to do the same thing with businesses. To give people an opportunity to realize that governing a company is actually learning to overcome some of our natural tendencies to be competitive with each other to the degree that we destroy value, and how we collaborate, and how we do this not by the slogans of the sports world, but really through the uniqueness of being ourselves, authentic and connected and caretaking.
Terrific. So I've got my last question for you, and this is a question on failure. You know, from my part of the world or large parts of Asia, parents don't teach children it's okay to fail. We're always told, come first, go to the head of the line, etc., etc. Yet we fail. We learn. My question to you, Amir, is, what have been some of your learnings from your mistakes?
Well, I had one not long ago, actually, a few days. I made a commitment to do a session in 1 o'clock in the morning here, some other place around the world at an appropriate hour. I took a short nap at 4. I got up and I wanted to make sure that I'm going to be pumped with energy, and I drank coffee. My mouth got very dried as a result of it. I lost my train of thought. I panicked. And I wasn't really able to deliver what I needed to deliver. The learning is not just the physical part of it. The learning is the preparation. The learning is the commitment to do a great job for people and to be able to be there for them. I think that sometimes I've been arrogant. I was becoming too full of myself, too focused on my perspective, and I pushed too hard. And I needed to learn to lean back and to let the people who own the situation take charge over it and do what they need to do. it's a duality between being powerful and being charismatic in one way, but also being humble and being able to ensure that the people who are really the people who matter are going to be the people who will make the change and the govern will do it.
Incredible.
So these are important lessons to be
I agree.
learned.
I agree. Amir, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. And I know we're going to do work together on forums, and I will do whatever I can. But it's always such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for all your words of wisdom.
Thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to use these words and hopefully make a difference. But more importantly, not what we did in the past, but what we will do together in the future.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.